So this is another edition of the Heel to Face podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And it is officially November, the last pay-per-view essentially coming up real soon before the first of the year, as no December pay-per-view as of right now is scheduled. We'll talk that WWE calendar that was released last week, as well as get you ready for the return of XPW this upcoming weekend in all places. Rochester, New York, as another edition of the Heel to Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. Brandon, myself, Jared, we make sure you follow the show, or we ask you. We don't make sure, but we ask you.
We ask you to follow
the show at
Yes.
Heel to the Face on Twitter, as we are officially in November, Survivor Series month.
One of my favorites.
Coming up real soon. Not too much to talk about in the world of WWE this past week as we head into Survivor Series. So I guess we'll talk a little Survivor Series right now as we head into it, because there's not a lot of story progression. And one thing about there not being a lot of story progression is, for those who don't put two and two together, it's because I think Survivor Series, what we can expect is a lot of Raw versus SmackDown, a lot of champion versus champion matches.
Yeah.
So with that being said, how do you enjoy television, Raw, SmackDown wise, WWE wise, heading into a pay-per-view where I don't think we're going to see a lot of build up for anything, knowing that these matches are going to just be Raw versus SmackDown. They're not going to have a lot of storyline progression. We're not going to have championships, I guess, number one contenders for the most part, needing to be named. We know that it's going to be Seth Rollins versus Big E eventually. Probably not a Survivor Series because of that. But you're a big Survivor Series guy, so I guess kind of defend the Survivor Series for me, because it's tough.
It is tough. And I am all about storylines and building up programs. I am completely on with that. The thing I like about the Survivor Series, which this is going to be kind of contradictory because I don't like all sporting event all-star games, but this is like the all-star game for wrestling, where you match up the best female competitors, the best male competitors on each brand, and you have these fantastic matches. And for me, yes, it's a nice break from the storylines, believe it or not. I mean, it's not like it's a whole year where they're just throwing matches together just for them throwing matches together. It's like the sake of doing it. They're letting some of these guys and girls that are on new brands, it's new, fresh matchups. They don't have to have storylines at this point to make it interesting, because you're seeing guys like Ziggler and Rude, the Dirty Dogs, facing off with some new tag team. Like it's fun. Street Profits, same thing. You're seeing these new matchups. Plus, folks like RK Bro, they're on fire right now with that new music. I don't know if you heard that. That was a nice new take on the music. But for me, it's just fresh matchups, and I don't think WWE is doing this on purpose. Maybe they are. If they are, kudos to them. But they did the WWE draft at the right time, because it's giving the fans a fresh look at new matchups, or matchups we haven't seen in a year or two. So that's why it's okay to not have the best storylines or any storylines at this point, because you're just building up to the All-Star game. That's all it is for me. It's the All-Star pay-per-view, I guess. And then as soon as Survivor Series is over, we start really building that program to not only Royal Rumble, but in the horizon coming up, I know you'll probably be there, WrestleMania.
I'm going to try to be there. I think tickets actually go on sale next week for it, so I'll try to pick those up. But we'll talk that.
By the way, did you borrow that little get up there from Seth Rollins?
I mean, it does got the drip.
Yeah, I was going to say you got the drip, my friend.
It is crazy. Seth Rollins knows that lingo, because that is very
it's new.
Youth.
It's the kids.
Seth Rollins is my age, so
yeah, I was gonna say the kids these days. That's all. We're like the old people now. Yeah. So, but yes, I gotta say, looking fresh, man.
So with Survivor Series on the horizon, I guess it is one of those pay-per-views, because I always, when Survivor Series comes up on the horizon, I always ask myself, like, how have I not been to a Survivor Series yet? I've gone to the Rumble, SummerSlam, I've gone to WrestleManias, and how have I not been to Survivor Series? And then and even this year, with other people planning to go to the Survivor Series and being like, yeah, for sure I want to go to the Survivor Series. And then when the matches start to come out, or in this case, lack thereof, you start to realize, like, oh yeah, that's kind of why I haven't gone, because I mean, essentially it'd be driving somewhere, or in other cases, flying somewhere to watch an event that, doesn't have any sort of, I guess, moments that you remember because of the fact.
But you're putting the A+ players together. That's the thing. You're putting the best from both brands.
But with
together.
that though, you don't get the moments. Like, for example, with SummerSlam or WrestleMania or the Royal Rumble.
You don't get moments? You don't get great moments.
There's
great
a lot
matches?
of Survivor Series moments that I remember for sure, but in the last couple of years when they've been doing these champion versus champion matches, there aren't any moments that have been any great returns, surprises, heel turns, or anything that's like I can't believe, like Royal Rumble, you got the returns every single year. WrestleMania, I mean, that just goes without saying.
Wait, let me ask you this. So, I mean, I'm speculating, of course. So how would you feel if, like, Brock Lesnar is like a surprise on the
Well,
team?
I guess that would be great.
That'd be cool.
That would be something. But I guess
because
my
he's
thing
suspended right now. Maybe they're saving him because they only get to use him a certain amount of dates. I don't know the exact amount. I know we've talked, 8 to 12 or whatever the hell the number was, whatever the range is. Mm-hmm. Survivor Series would be a good time for him because you bring out your A+ players, and last time I checked, he's box office appeal. So.
Yeah, no, it's like one of those, though, in the last couple years, whether it be pandemic or pre-pandemic.
I agree with you there.
There's not really any sort of like the Edge return, obviously, is talked about a ton.
Sure.
Or, just other Royal Rumble moments that have happened because Royal Rumble has kind of always been the same. It's actually only kind of progressed to get bigger. Survivor Series, though, the Montreal Screwjob or the return of Sting or things like that are actually more in the past than the more recent ones. The more recent ones are just the All-Star Game editions that don't have the you had to be there moments like that. You will remember.
Hey,
we don't refresh Survivor Series 2018.
That's why you go, though. That's why you go to these things, because you never know. Like I think you were at one of the cash-ins for Great American Bash, I think it was.
That was New Year's Revolution. The very first cash-in, Edge, very first cash-in, yes.
I knew it was something along those lines. You go to so many events.
And I'm going to try to be there at that Barclays Center this year. I am going to try to head down there. Tickets are not that expensive, even though it is at Barclays Center in the New York City area. It isn't getting the draw. Obviously, that's a topic for another day with
we've already
competing
talked about
WWE versus AEW and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But speaking of storyline progressions and speaking of WWE and staying on that topic, we saw Becky Lynch this week take on Bianca Belair for the championship in the main event of Monday Night Raw. And with Becky Lynch winning the match, that moved Bianca Belair to 0-5 in championship matches since losing her belt at SummerSlam. What do you make of that?
Sounds like another Sasha Banks to me. Sasha Banks, she's always in the big matches, but a lot of times she comes out on the other end of it. So I don't make anything of it. I'm not reading much into it. I think it's just a big push for Becky at this point. And I have to ask you, speaking of Becky, really quick, just the way she delivers, not only in promos but in the ring. I don't know if I'm reading this wrong or seeing it wrong. I feel like Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins are both doing like similar type programs right now. It's like Becky's doing her thing, and like the way she presents it is very similar to Seth, I feel like. And they were even wearing the same kind of attire recently I saw on a show. I just got to get your take on that. Have you noticed anything like Becky, Seth, like they're kind of carrying themselves in a very similar way? Minus Becky having the belt.
No, I've actually maybe haven't noticed so well, but I've noticed that they've done a very good job in kind of keeping their personal life, private in a sense.
Well, yeah, in a sense, because as we've seen, I think Bianca made a comment. I think Kevin Owens made little innuendos, things
but
like that.
We're not seeing them tagging up or anything like that.
No, and I will say this, and getting back to Becky and Bianca's fine. Like she's gonna be fine. I'm not worried about this 0-5, whatever. She is part of WWE's plans for the future. She's uber talented. She's one of those talents that's not going anywhere. I don't see her even dipping her toes into the pool of AEW, so to speak. I think she's going to be a long time WWE. She's going to be a WWE wrestler for a long time. So don't make anything of it. It's just wrestlers go through these stretches. Even if you're good, middle card, low card, it doesn't matter. You're going to go through stretches like this. She's part of the future. Don't worry about it.
So last week, I think it was like early last week, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but WWE released their upcoming pay-per-view calendar. They seem to be doing, it seems like the WWE is announcing things like further and further in advance. First it's just WrestleMania next year, then it's Royal Rumble, now it's like the whole calendar has been announced for all of 2022, featuring starting on January 1st. There won't be a December pay-per-view as of right now. January 1st is going to have that new Day 1 pay-per-view, which is a Saturday, then the Royal Rumble about a month later, which is a Saturday, but also still in January. There's a few takeaways to make from it. First off, we'll start in the summer months. I think it's July 2nd, Money in the Bank in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, and then July 30th, so not even August, July 30th, SummerSlam.
That's odd.
That's the first SummerSlam in July at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. What do you make of these two stadium shows within 28 days of each other?
I mean, they're going for it. I mean, they're trying to make up for lost time apparently because of the COVID pandemic. I mean, that's my thoughts on it. Of course,
a little ambitious, obviously, going with the AEW situation they have right now.
Yeah,
a little bit of a rivalry, but
okay. Let's hold on. We gotta stop there for a second.
A little bit of a rivalry.
Yeah, a little. Let's emphasize little because let's just be honest. WWE has a global. They're globally known. They're a global power.
It just seems like of all the times in their history, because let's say they've had some very hot moments in their history, and yet they've never been as ambitious enough to run essentially two stadium shows in the same month.
You're definitely. I think a lot of it has to do. Well, no, I would say two things. AEW, I would say WWE will obviously up and down swear that's not the case, but I would say it's that, but also. It's the pandemic stuff. It's the, not having shows for a long time. They're making up for lost time. But the weird thing for me is, why the hell is SummerSlam in July? Why isn't it in August? That's usually like August. I know SummerSlam. Why is it July?
And a lot of people were saying that it could have possibly been moved to July this past year, and it did not.
I like August. August is a great month.
It seems to be even more strange, I guess, to be in July, the fact that that Money in the Bank is in a stadium on July 2nd. So you would think, again,
that's more ambitious than SummerSlam. Because I expect
SummerSlam's a set thing.
Yeah,
Plus, you're also going back to Las Vegas where you just got a stadium show. Like people like myself who went to Las Vegas, made a big thing of it, thought it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We're not going to return, especially for Money in the Bank.
Yeah,
less than a year later, of all things.
Yeah,
less than a year later.
I give WWE credit for the ambition. I hope it works. But for me, it's not a core 4 pay-per-view. So it's not one of those like really big-time pay-per-views where you can do the stadium and it's cool. I hope it works.
I mean,
but it's really ambitious. You are right.
From my perspective, I think WWE is starting to hope that it turns into one of the core 4 pay-per-views. I guess you would say.
It's definitely what they're shooting for. They wouldn't be doing this whole stadium setup.
I think they've been shooting for a little bit now, though. I think Money in the Bank they've been shooting for. It's been getting bigger and bigger and more steam behind it.
Which is interesting. It's are they going to keep the core 4 and then add it? Or are they trying to get rid of one of the 4? Like, I hope they don't get rid of Survivor Series. I know we've been talking about that.
Survivor Series has always been the one at the end.
It's a staple, though. It's something that, I mean, a lot of fans like myself, we look forward to that. It's a change of pace from the regular, 10, 11 months out of the year where it's storyline driven, which, by the way, I love storylines. But sometimes you need a break and just let good wrestlers get out and just put on a show.
Well, and one thing about it, again, being a core pay-per-view, the thing about the core pay-per-views is they're always like at a season. There's like 2 or 3 pay-per-views in between them. So the fact that it's literally right up against SummerSlam.
I didn't even think of it that way. That's a great way to think about it. That is odd because like you're asked, you nailed it. It's, like the holiday season. I mean, you got like.
So the Rumble, February, March, WrestleMania, then May, June, July, SummerSlam. And even King of the Ring when it was in there, it was still between. It didn't come before or after SummerSlam like directly.
See, I would look at it like this. So I would say winter is Rumble. I always think of winter Rumble. I think spring is WrestleMania, SummerSlam, duh. And then fall is Survivor Series. That's the 4. That's how I look at it each season.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. So adding a 5th one is a little odd for me. Like, I guess I'm a traditionalist. Like, why don't we just keep the ones that are established? Why do we need to water it down even more and kind of dilute the pay-per-views, especially within a month? I don't mind Money in the Bank. I love Money in the Bank. But to make it a stadium show, it's a little ambitious. I think they should just put it in a normal size arena. And
I think the thing is with Money in the Bank specifically being in Las Vegas, it's not just that it's a stadium show. It's the fact that when they went to Las Vegas last year for SummerSlam, from all accounts, that was the start of, I don't want to say like Saudi Arabia, but that's apparently the start for what a lot of WWE executives are saying is like a new big market that they want to really tap into. I mean, that Credit One credit card that they keep pumping out all the time and sponsor is based out of Las Vegas. So this is like a new... They're New York City, I guess.
Yeah, it's like New York City West.
Yeah, that's essentially how they're treating it. So the fact that they're going back there isn't so much just the crowd, but it's also trying to like establish like a yearly presence in Las Vegas.
That was negotiated by the execs from both Credit One and WWE. I'm wondering though,
and just the idea of like Las Vegas of just trying to tap into that market of just being like a vacation spot /
Speaking of that, like I don't know. I don't know if you saw it, but I can't remember the person's name. But one of WWE's, they were part of WWE for like 15 years.
Dan Stanzik, I think it was.
Thank you. That's the name. Yes, was let go. So I got to ask you, since we're talking executives and all that, do you see any other names filtering out being released? Or, I mean, are we going through another mass release?
There have been rumors that today, actually, some very reputable sources saying that there was potential rumors before the end of the day of some releases. The names that they heard or were talked about were not huge names. Like, we're not talking the Roman Reigns of the world, obviously. But no, I definitely could see. I mean, is there way WWE's worked the last couple of years? Do you ever see a time where you're saying like, nah, like we're good, everybody's got their job safe?
No. It's one of those deals where they're always shifting. And I gotta ask you though. So especially
like low end NXT guys.
Did you speaking of promotions and whatnot too? Ring of Honor. I don't know if you saw. I know we talked about it a lot last week, but numbers have come out that they're in the whole Sinclair Broadcasting billions, not millions, folks. That's billions with a B.
So how do you even get in the hole in billions?
Yeah, it's not like it's a big promotion.
You work more in the finance world. The fact is that, first off, their production isn't the highest. They haven't traveled in over a year.
That's what I mean.
And I understand that they're paying salaries, but I mean, none of these guys are commanding $1 million salaries or even $250,000 salaries. I imagine.
I would say like the guys like Jay Lethal, they're making six figures probably, but
yeah,
but not like it's not low six figs.
Yeah, so I don't understand how you could. I mean, if you saw that they were in the billions, I did not see that, but that just seems. I don't even know how you'd get in that far.
I thought it was millions. Then I saw B. I was like, whoa, that's. I was like, wait. Are we talking about WWE? I mean, this is Ring of Honor. This is a higher end indie.
But boy, saying you used to work in the finance industry, I still am in the.
But
makes me
think
like, how do these people ever get this much money before you stop giving it to them?
They just keep getting credit. That's,
like when I was a kid, you put food on your plate, and then I'm like, I want seconds, and somebody'd be like, finish what you got there before I put more food on your plate. So with the billions, you think they'd say like, hey, pay us back $100 million before we loan you any more money?
I mean, there's definitely programs where if you want to borrow an extra line of credit, you got to pay back in increments. As designated by whatever institution deals with it. Yeah, so it's. How they got to the billion? I that boggles my mind. If you would have said WWE, I'd say yeah, sure, yeah. But like Ring of Honor to me is a higher end indie promotion. I would be surprised if they were in multi-million worth of that, not billions. I mean, maybe $1 million. I wouldn't think it would be that much because it's not a huge. I don't think it was that major of an asset anyways to Sinclair. So that was a little odd. I mean, for billions for Sinclair is probably not a big deal because they own enough real estate, so to speak, in the industry anyways, and in TV anyway. So I'm not too worried about it. But
that's still a lot for anybody.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. That's like Mr. Deeds kind of money.
But going back to the WWE PayPerView calendar, a few other takeaways is the fact that there's a lot more Saturday pay-per-views. Obviously, both Money in the Bank's Saturday, SummerSlam's a Saturday, WrestleMania, obviously 2 nights. One of those nights is a Saturday. Royal Rumble's a Saturday. And even I think Survivor Series next year is a Saturday. A lot of talk is saying that during the month, especially, the September through November months, they're trying to stay away from the NFL. What do you make? I know, obviously, the easy answer is, Saturday, we could stay up late. But, overall, sure. I feel like Sunday, regardless, yes, we're all tired and it's Sunday, but it seems to have that more cachet, that more traditional. I mean, yes, the Super Bowl would be good on a Saturday, but like it would feel weird.
Yeah, no.
With WWE now moving a lot of these pay-per-views to Saturday, what do you like that? Are you not a fan of that?
I personally like it, just from a person
stay up late standpoint.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I like it from that perspective because I don't have to drag ass on Monday morning after a late night pay-per-view. So from that perspective, I like it. I get the NFL side because I've seen reports out there that there's one landscape that AEW, aka Tony Khan, is not touching, and that's the NFL. So NFL is one of those properties that you're not touching. You're not going up against because I know we're football fans. The NFL is probably one of the most watched things anywhere. Yeah, anywhere.
Yes.
So you're not going up against it. So I get that point of it. I like it for Saturdays. I get you're a traditionalist. You like it on Sundays.
But the one thing is, if you go to a Saturday, I guess here's the thing, because if you go to a Saturday, well, you're not going against the NFL. You're going up against a whole new slew of things in the sense of people with Saturdays don't have the same stay home, watch TV on a Sunday night situation. They go out, they work late, they stay out late, they go out to dinner at 8 o'clock, which they don't do Sunday. Sunday, there are no restaurants are open at 8 o'clock.
With being competitive, they're still going to face college football. I know that's one thing. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't worry about UFC as much because UFC starts so late. Yeah. So they start at 10 o'clock. I mean, you could be out.
Plus, you can obviously set it up so that UFC isn't going on the same weekend. I know they have those fight nights and stuff, but against the main pay-per-view.
Yeah, you can make it work. Plus, if you were going again and like maybe the calendar, something got screwy and you landed on the same day as a big UFC pay-per-view, you can get out the door by 10 o'clock Eastern time, which is fine because then like folks like myself, all right, the pay-per-view, WWE pay-per-view is over, flipping over to the UFC pay-per-view.
And like you said, though, they're still going up against college football.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: there's no comparison to the NFL. So you got to pick your battle somewhere. You got to pick your poison. I mean, if you're gonna pick your poison, at least football standards, you go against college, which I love college anyway, college and pro. But you don't go against the NFL and win. That's just how.
And
it goes.
there's another thing about the new calendar that came out is there's a bunch of pay-per-views other than the main ones that we know about that are unnamed. Meaning, February pay-per-view is currently just TBA. The May pay-per-view is TBA.
Why is this? What do you think?
And the many people are saying is that the elimination chambers or those names might finally have passed their course and we might be moving on. So I guess the question to you is: are you happy to see the elimination chamber potentially gone, or would you I
want to bring back some old school ones, That's just me. Like, I'm trying to think of some old school ones that I liked.
No Mercy, No Way Out, Vengeance.
Yeah, those. I like those. I've always liked those type of pay-per-views.
But, here's the thing, and it's funny that it kind of comes full circle. We were just talking Money in the Bank. And, I never understood why in the past the WWE went with all these, like, name pay-per-views. Hell in a Cell, Elimination Chamber, Fatal 4-Way, some, whatever. And then, all of a sudden, with Money in the Bank, it kind of came around and made me realize why. Because with the Royal Rumble, for example, I already have tickets to the Royal Rumble, and yet I don't know what matches are going to happen, but I know
the Rumble's
happening.
You got it.
And that's what they're selling the pay-per-view on. So these other pay-per-views, a way to market them, aka why Money in the Bank is going to be in a stadium and why they're going to sell tickets months and months in advance.
Because people already know it's going to be there.
We already know those matches are guaranteed.
You got it.
So I think WWE back many years ago when they started this thought an idea like, hey...
You can come up with better names though. You can go back to a No Way Out, and then people can put it together like, oh, Hell in a Cell. You don't have to name them. You don't have to necessarily name it for every pay per view. Oh, every pay per view, month 1, month 2. It's this. Tables, ladders, and chairs. It's like you can come up with creative ways. Like No Way Out is a way of saying, okay, there's probably gonna be a Hell in a Cell match because they're not just saying, oh, it's Hell in a Cell. No Way Out. How do you get out of a Hell in a Cell? There's no way out. You're locked in.
Yes.
It's a play on words.
Yes, it's a play on words. I get that. But obviously, they can only really do that for No Way Out. I mean, No Mercy, you don't know what you're getting. If No Mercy happens in October, you don't know what you're getting or
true.
Stuff like that. But I see WWE's perspective on why they did it, because if I bought tickets to the Elimination Chamber or Hell in a Cell, the cool thing is I know I'm getting a Hell in a Cell
you're getting
match.
A chamber, yeah.
The problem is from a non-ticketing standpoint for fans, just who watch it on television, you get the perspective of wasting these matches in situations they're not warranted. You have like a feud that this is their first match between the two, and they're going in Hell in a Cell when it's stuff that should graduate to that.
That last cage match we just had with Rollins and Edge, perfect payoff.
Well, and that was an organic Hell in a Cell match because
was perfect.
That just happened to be at a pay-per-view where that wasn't named Hell in a Cell, and it happened to be when that feud warranted it.
I don't know if you heard this, but Edge was hesitant about doing the show in Saudi. He didn't, like reports coming out that he didn't want to do it in Saudi, but I think he realized it was the perfect way to pay it off.
Well, I mean, I think everyone's hesitant about everything to do with Saudi.
But I will say, I read part of the article. I was reading it this afternoon, and that he had, I forget her name, but one of the female referees, he went to WWE and said, I want her to be the referee in this match. And obviously for the Saudi Arabian, we're not going to go into the whole politics of it, but he did it to make a statement indirectly because he has daughters. He was just doing it that way. So it kind of how I read it was Edge did the match, but he was going to do the match if he can have a female referee.
One final takeaway from the pay-per-view calendar is that next year they have decided September 4th or September 5th. They haven't decided Saturday or Sunday. There will be a pay-per-view, and a lot of people are speculating that could be a pay-per-view in London. That would be the 30th anniversary of SummerSlam. A lot of people are thinking that the 30th anniversary of SummerSlam that was in London was going to be SummerSlam, but that's not the case. But they still appear that they might be going to England for a September 4th or September 5th pay-per-view, in which would be in a stadium, in which maybe why SummerSlam's pushed up to give maybe the SummerSlam to this pay-per-view more time to breathe.
What would you name this pay-per-view if you had to come up with a name?
Mayhem in Manchester. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
go.
actually,
Wow,
I'd bring up the old ones. What, the Insurrection or Rebellion?
Yes, Rebellion. I like that one.
Yeah.
I always liked Rebellion. I like that
I
one.
never understood those pay-per-views in the sense of why they had to be separate from the calendar, why they couldn't just go there for pay-per-views. Like why Rebellion had to be like a house show pay-per-view between No Way Out and No Mercy. Why
Just make it a pay-per-view. Just make it a traditional pay-per-view.
Because they were literally house show pay-per-views. They were pay-per-views you could only buy in England, and then you could buy them on DVD here or VHS tape. And they were just a bunch of championship matches that no championships changed hands because they didn't acknowledge it on Raw or SmackDown.
Yeah, it was just kind of thrown together.
And then when you talk about Saudi Arabia shows being house shows, those were legitimate house shows. Those were legitimate.
Hey,
they were televised house shows.
Up to this previous Crown Jewel, I would say it was a glorified house show.
But at least, again, that was on television here. Like, this was only advertised in one country as a pay-per-view and completely ignored elsewhere.
It's because of streaming. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's the modern technology, streaming, all that stuff. I will acknowledge one last time, though, Crown Jewel, this recent one, that was not your traditional, live
Which it should be. It should just be that month's pay-per-view.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised when you talked about that, but that was a difference. It was usually for me, it's just like another live show, whatever. But in this case, it was a fantastic show.
So I wanted to move on to what 2 weeks ago, the Dark Side of the Ring took a look at XPW Wrestling. And kind of coincidental, the return of XPW Wrestling since it went out of business is this upcoming Sunday from the Main Street Armory in Rochester. It did have a little return. I did do some research. In 08 and 09, they did some reunion shows, not run by Rob Black. Hence, they said that some of the promos for this upcoming one said that it's been tried to be revived, but hasn't because it wasn't revived by the original Rob Black.
Yeah, by Rob Black, yeah.
So if you didn't watch the XPW Dark Side of the Ring, essentially, I originally thought it kind of came after ECW. Didn't realize it kind of came at the same time, 99. And they at one time were trying to coexist before they didn't coexist.
I mean, they had kind of a
talent agreement.
Yeah, they had an interesting relationship with like Rob Black and Paul Heyman. They detailed that in the show. Mm-hmm. It was interesting to see that, and then we got to see who passed away recently. Who was on the show?
New Jack.
New Jack. Thank you. Yeah, you got to see some New Jack clips. That was cool. And he was talking about like beating up XPW workers. It was
which is funny because that's New Jack for you. In one segment 100%. He's talking about literally beating up ring crew on XPW as a member of ECW, and then a few weeks later he's a member of XPW.
That's New Jack. That's just how he is. That's just New Jack. Like Rob Black was like, all right guys, like he's here. Like how did that go down?
He's beating up them, and then he's a part of them.
Then he's working on the team.
Yes.
And remember, he threw I forgot the dude's name. Vic
Grimes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Grimes.
That was my foray into XPW. I had never heard about it until that incident. That was, to me, one of the first viral pro wrestling moments because the internet was around, but it was one of those things that like people were like, did you see this? Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with XPW or anything like that. It made me go buy the DVD Freefall. It's probably sitting at my parents' house still to this day somewhere. But that's my foray into XPW Wrestling. So if you don't know XPW Wrestling, it was essentially a porn director born in Rochester, New York, made his way out to Los Angeles in his early 20s, got into pornography and started to, essentially Tony Khan did, if you will, his love of pro wrestling without so much the sense. And more of a Rob Black brain than a Tony Khan brain.
Sure.
Wanted to up the ante and kind of do what ECW was doing, but even a little bit further.
Yeah, well, he went real extreme.
And what we learned in the Dark Side of the Ring is there was a lot of more than just a renegade promotion, but there was things of, people taking, chair shots to the head. I forgot what his name was, but he put his hands up for the chair shot.
And then he got his ass chewed, yeah.
And then he got his ass, not chewed like Vince McMahon chewed, like sent back out there to take a bunch of dangerous chair shots.
Yeah, they tied him up, yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy still has a mark on his head, even to this day.
Yes. And speaking of people who still have the scars, wrestler Messiah at the time, one of the main guys in XPW, one-time heavyweight champion.
Watch out for those digits.
We had a great relationship with Rob Black until he didn't. Obviously, slept with his wife and other stuff like that. Ended up being pretty much a hit out for him.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta. I mean, all accounts point to Rob Black was not found guilty of anything, but come on now. Some guy just goes into this guy's house and wants to cut off his thumbs with garden shears for no reason.
Yes, there was obviously, but they never tied it together. I mean, at the end, Rob got time. He got some time. So
yes, he found
because he called out the U.S. government. Like
yes,
that's
because it wasn't just obviously this. We're not talking. And if you're not familiar with the pornography that he used to I guess fund this wrestling company, it wasn't the Hugh Hefner Playboy style. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it was
enough that it warranted him going to prison for obscenity charges.
Yeah, it was not. It's very, very graphic. I'll just say that.
Yes. But with that being said, this upcoming week, he returns to the world with XPW Wrestling. And I guess my thing is knowing all you know, and after having watched that, and I listened to the Dark Side of the Ring podcast from Rob Black as well, he didn't say too much to kind of refute what they said. He didn't go against it. He did say that he plans, I guess, to bring the guy who played Rob Black. So if you don't know, these Dark Side of the Rings are a Canadian product. Yeah. So he's out of Toronto. So the guy who played Rob Black, I guess, portrayed him in XPW's Dark Side of the Ring, might make an appearance at this show and stuff like that. He's been kind of talking with him. But with that being said, with XPW coming back, I'll just say this. My girlfriend, when we had the tickets already for XPW, didn't know much about it. But then after watching the Dark Side of the Ring says, do we want to give this guy money? I feel a little dirty. Well, should we be supporting this XPW venture?
I mean, let's see. I just want to see the show. I want to see what happens. Like, I think it's more curiosity than anything, especially after watching the Dark Side of the Ring. Yeah, you're right though. You kind of do feel kind of kind of icky, so to speak. So,
I mean, so right now I'm trying to bring up some of this stuff because there actually is. If you're not familiar with the card this upcoming week, it actually looks like it's going to be a decent card. They're going to crown a new champion. Champion in general. The last champion was Shane Douglas. It's too bad he can't come back and reprise. But tournament so far, it's one match is going to be Willie Mack versus Matt Cross. Willie Mack from, he's been in Impact and all over. He is going to be in one of the first round tournament matches. Let's see if I can get some of the other tournament matches. I know that Rhino is going to be involved. Yeah, let's look at this other tournament match. Brian Cage. I don't know who this guy is facing. Casey Navarro. I've heard of him, but not too familiar. But he's Brian Cage. We know who Brian Cage is. Yep. Bill Collier, who I told you I've seen him on AEW Dark. He went against Moxley.
TJP.
He's going against TJP in the first round.
Hey.
And Bill Collier, as I said before, I've seen him on the indie circuit, and he is somebody from a perspective of look that he does not look like an indie guy. He looks like he could walk into WWE tomorrow.
And he'd fit right in.
Yes. And Rhino against Masita. Masita has kind of been an indie. He's a roughneck indie guy.
Yeah.
I could see him in the GCW's the death match of the world. And obviously we know Rhino very well. But some other guys, and we talk about Ring of Honor going out of business. Vincent. Now, if you're not familiar with Vincent, he came from Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And he had, I guess, the Bray Wyatt gimmick going a little before the Bray Wyatt. He looks like a Wyatt family Bray Wyatt. I'm not talking the Fiend Bray Wyatt. I'm talking the regular Bray
original,
Wyatt. Yeah. But he's very much into, like you're looking at a picture right now here in the studio, covered in horror movie tattoos. He's kind of got that.
He's got that look.
Mix of he's got more of the Bray Wyatt family look, but more of like the Fiend kind of character in Ring of Honor.
He's kind of a hybrid.
But he's been around for a while. He's been in Ring of Honor forever. I want to say 10 years or so, but he'll be at XPW. I think he's somebody who could fit right in. And Silas Young, Ring of Honor, just went out. And now, look, here comes Silas Young. He spent some time in SoCal Uncensored in the past. And obviously we talked about TJP and whoever else they could possibly be pulling out. But the
seems
card,
like they got a decent card.
So far from what I've checked, and I wonder, I don't know the general admission numbers, but from the reserve seat numbers, which is the first 4 rows all around the ring, which are reserve seating.
Sold out?
No, opposite. They've only sold like about 50 tickets or so.
That's it?
Of reserve seating.
Wow.
I mean, again, I don't know the general admission numbers because those are general admission, so you don't know.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of actual seats, you can pull up and see the first row, which is $100, but includes a T-shirt and a poster and all this other stuff. Those are all sold out, but pretty much everything else, because there's like 10 seats in the first row on all 4 sides.
Yeah.
Those are sold out. But after that, you can get your seats in the second row. You can get some seats in the third row. You can definitely get seats in the 4th row.
Nice.
But
not so nice. Nice for if you're trying to buy it last minute. But
yes. And obviously, general admission seats are also still available. But I guess the question is, do you feel dirty supporting Rob Black here?
I do. I do, but the card is not bad. It makes you want to go. I've been on the fence. I'm still, we're recording right towards the end of the week, so I got some time to ponder it, and it might be something I do.
$19.99 on Fight TV. If that's how you watch it, it is this Sunday night, the return of XPW. It seemed very apropos to go the fact that it's coming right after that Dark Side of the Ring.
I know that makes it interesting.
Yes. So that's this upcoming week in Rochester, New York. Kind of strange. And we always wondered why Rochester. The fact that he owns a cheeseburger place in Rochester.
If I'm able to make the trek out, I may have to stop at the burger joint.
But he already does. After this, he does have a plan to crown a King of the Death match in his next event, which will be back in their home state or original home base of Los Angeles, California. So the ambition's there. It's not just like, we're starting in Rochester and we're going to kind of just his plan to go right back to L.A. and make this a national promotion.
Well, good luck for him. Good luck to him, I guess,
So hopefully they get a good crowd this week. Like I said, so far, from what I can tell, it's going to be interesting to see who turns out for this. But I'll be there for it. And if anything else happens in the world of AEW and WWE that's worth noting, we'll be there for it. So for another edition, next week we'll be talking Full Gear. Already coming up for AEW's next big pay-per-view.
Can't wait. It's going to be a good show.
For Brandon, I'm Jared. This has been another edition of the Heel to Face podcast, and we will talk to you next week.